People, Deluded, I'm back again. Good evening, and I hope you're all doing well and safe. Now, just before I go and eat my Sunday dinner, I'm sure at this point, to be honest, I don't know when my videos come out. I scheduled them, but it should have been out, in which I briefly spoke about, you're all seeing Arsenal and Arsenal's players, specifically at loggerheads in relation to wages and, taking a pay cut and things with the global epidemic. Now, literally within the last hour, courtesy of The Athletic, I've come across an article where they've shedded a bit more light on that. Now, I do think it's a difficult one, and I do think it's one of them situations you cannot display ignorance and you cannot just have one view. If you want to, I can't tell you what to think. I tell you guys, or try to preach and teach to think. Now, if you believe footballers are money grabbers and things like that, it is what it is. But if you look at it from all perspectives and things you might not necessarily comprehend, players specifically have to be very wary of clubs with this pay cut stuff and have to be very wary of just exactly how it's done. There are a lot of variables to consider, way too much to sit here, and it's difficult. And I do believe players should not make any haste decisions in taking a cut, and any agent that's preaching that isn't necessarily doing the best thing, because there's a lot of red tape around this situation. There's a lot of things to be said. We don't know in relation to the worldwide epidemic how it's going to thingy as well, and you can't always paint clubs in a lovely light, because like you've seen with the furlong business, clubs, whether they should or not, they will exploit any rule they can get, and Arsenal is no different from that. Obviously, the main reason for Arsenal is clearly to cut costs. We're not getting anyone in the match day in terms of bums on seats on a match day and the various costs that people entail with going to matches, food, merchandise, etc, etc. That's one. Obviously, with us not being in the Champions League, I know we've still got money, and I know we've made new sponsorships and stuff, but the lack of Champions League money is harming this club. And when you look at our wages, like Josh Kroenke said a few months ago, we've got a Champions League wage budget, and we've got a Champions League, a Europa League squad on Champions League money or something in that, for want of better terms. So they actively know there's an imbalance here. And again, not to be the devil's advocate, but this potentially is something for people to exploit. And obviously, a lot of players get bonuses. There's a lot of different sort of, things to get there. Many players will not have a problem deferring money and things like that. They will not have an issue. Many players have shown they're on it. They know they got a lot of money. They're entitled to get that money, but they know that it needs to go to better causes. So if it's a thing where several other things can be done, why not? But like you've seen with the new initiative with the NHS, players have shown they're not going to be swindled, and there's a lot of red tape. Mesut Ozil and Toby Alderweireld's agents came out and gave some lovely think pieces in relation to this as well. I've done a video on that, go and check that out. But in relation to The Athletic and what I've specifically come across, people, Arsenal players are preferred to take a wage deferral, but will insist that any player who takes one and is sold this summer is guaranteed to receive that money back. Now again, before I've even got into that, you can see how potentially a club could exploit that. Okay, Mkhitaryan's on 200 and something. He would have got this much being here, but if we sell him now, he's not going to get what he's owed, sort of thing. When that's not necessarily always the case when someone joins another team. And I'm not saying that's Mkhitaryan, I'm just using him to paint a picture. So again, there's difficult decisions to be made, people. In addition, Arsenal have asked their players to donate a week's wages to help cover the costs of the salaries of lower paid staff to protect all jobs at the club during the coronavirus. Now, I'm sorry. And again, from a moral point of view, I do not think any Arsenal player, especially because we're a community club and a lot of them have come from poverty and stuff like that, they will have no issues definitely donating a week's wages, because what is that to them? But I have to point fingers at the club. Again, it's not that white and black, but I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. This is $1 billion club in terms of worth. We've got $1 billion owner. I'm not saying Stan Kroenke by himself needs to fix these things, but why should it be, forget the fact that they're footballers, why are employees having to save employees when year in, year out, forget the Champions League losing money, we've seen the riches of this league. This club is, we're always up. We might have been inconsistent for league finishes, but you go and look at season tickets and gate receipts and all of these things. The one consistency is Arsenal is 9 times out of 10 in and around the top. Do you get it? We all know what has been Arsenal with the Emirates. There's on one hand we could be earning a lot more money, but one consistent has been we're putting money in certain people's pockets, and it hasn't been replicated on the football field. But I'm sorry, employees shouldn't save employees. Yes, pay cuts. Everyone's got to take a pay cut. Things got to happen. I'm not talking about that. But the premise, what it feels like for all clubs, not just us. It just feels like players have to save everybody. And again, players have to take cuts and things. But these are not the people that are signing off these executive deals, these sponsorship deals. They're not they're benefiting because ultimately they're the ones playing and demand for the league. But they're not the ones seeing the riches of the Premier League. Clubs are trying to cut costs. It's a race to the bottom. From a business perspective, if we eliminate this and look at it morally, you have to try and cut costs because all that matters is the net spend, the net profit, and ultimately the balance sheet. And we all know we don't know how the market is going to react to this financial stuff. If we're still going to be seeing big money, if clubs are going to start looking at youth players or players that were cast off on a coaching aspect, or you might not see any of them big boy signings, and which obviously Arsenal technically have no money when it comes to transfers, are going to be a problem with that. So we've got to be very creative. We've got an extremely massive outlay in terms of wages, and you can't really say, no disrespect to any players, but with some of the wages, not that I want to speak about money consistently, always follows the ability sort of thing, people. And obviously, if you want to give Aubameyang a new deal, and you've got Ozil, you've got Mkhitaryan, you've got Kolasinac and Lacazette, I've mentioned all of them because they've all got 2 years max left on their deals. Decisions have to be made. Hector Bellerin as well. So again, it's going to be different. You cannot really picture a world where Laka and or Lacazette sign a new deal in addition to Ozil and Mkhitaryan staying. They could, but that would probably put the wage issues even more at a problem, people. Like I said, the players will take a cut, but clearly they're liaising with each other. And I can't guarantee because I don't know, but you'd imagine Arsenal man are speaking to Chelsea man, the Chelsea squad going through the same thing, or Burnley or whatever. They need to do this, and the players, just forget Arsenal, players need to come together. And I do think agents have been kind of kept out of this, people. I know agents get demonized, but agents really need to look after their best players their best players' interest, because this is how players get swindled when the teams start talking in legal terms and fancy writing. And I do think agents have kind of been forgotten about in relation to this. Like I said, many people take a dim view and just assume at base level players are greedy, they're not taking money cuts. I had to unfollow someone for that nonsense today. When there's a variable, but moving away from that, people, like I said, they're prepared to take such, but insist any player who takes one is and is sold this summer is guaranteed to receive the money back. I mean, Aubameyang still gets goal bonuses and things like that. Imagine he's sold. Let's carry on though. Like I said, they asked the players to cover the wages. Mikel Arteta's squad are set to reject the club's proposal to collectively take a pay cut for the year, but are open to deferring their wages if assurances can be given that 100% of the jobs at the club will be protected. And again, if the jobs are protected, the players have shown they're not for that. But again, things change very quickly. And to be honest, in Arsenal's defence, I don't want anyone to lose their job, but you don't know how we're going to react. If it gets to the worst case scenario, like we're talking recession sort of business, then you can see how some things can't be avoided. But I'm sorry, collectively, all these clubs have accumulated enough money, have mismanaged and spent enough money on other things to not want to do this. You've got owners who should be picking up this bill because it's light for them, really and truly. And it shouldn't be employees saving employees, really and truly. Like I said, wage cuts, all of these things are welcome, but in premise, it seems like the only ones that are going to save it and turn this club around are the players. That's just purely for the football field, in tandem with Arteta. Clearly, as you lot have given by now, as you lot have gathered by now, people, the original offer, which was the first news earlier today, has been rejected. Apparently, the club's original pay proposal was rejected. The Athletic was on a sliding scale built around whether or not the Athletic whether or not the team qualify for Europe next season. Apparently, they won't have to take a pay cut if they make Champions League. And again, if this current campaign goes ahead, again, it's a fat chance that Arsenal are going to make Champions League. I don't remember the table. We're like 9th. You've got, forget about who the other top 6 rivals that technically are. You've got Wolves, Sheffield United to contend with, people. You've got Leicester complicating things as well. 3 teams which, if they weren't in the picture and doing as well as they could, you could say, you could nick it. But do you see, I hope Leicester and these teams drop out so we can potentially take advantage. But it's out of our hands. We're relying on too much. So that is a bit cheeky saying Champions League, especially because they're out of the Europa. Unless a miracle happens, and really it doesn't matter how much form Arsenal put together. That's one hand. You're relying too much on other teams. You're actually relying on United, because if I remember the table, they're doing all right. You're relying on even Chelsea to mess up. You're relying on the Wolves and the Sheffields and Leicesters. You're preying on too many miracles. And even if you win every game, again, you can still get in there, but relying on a lot. And Arsenal winning every game to the end of the season, assuming this season goes ahead again, is a fat chance. You got to play Liverpool and City. Boy, that's individual games for me. They're classed as 6-pointers, so that's 12 points technically on the line. If you know football, you know. You've still got the Spurs. Hopefully we win, but you've got 3 of the top 6 rivals. You've got some couple of difficult away games to be played, if I remember correctly. We've still got to go to Wolves. I could be wrong about Brighton. I'm sure we've got Southampton, so it's difficult, and that's cheeky from the club. Sources at the club feel the situation has been poorly handled, that it could have been a collaborative process with the costs and implications broken down and explained to the players and individual circumstances taken into account. And again, a club like Arsenal that claims to do things with a touch of class, which we do 9 times out of 10, shouldn't be this. It shouldn't be us in this. We should be doing better than this, really and truly. That's what this article says, if that is true. The squad are, though, minded to accept wage deferrals and donating a week's wages to support non-playing staff at the club. Arteta is understood to explain this secondary aspect to his squad, although nothing has yet been formally agreed. Arsenal proposed a 12.5% reduction of total players' compensation deducted monthly between April 2020 and March 2021. And again, not to be selfish, people, but you've got to remember these players in this side. You don't know the cost they've got away from this. You don't know how their own lifestyles are all set. They're all at different stages. It might be more vital that, and I know people will look at Mesut Ozil's contract and things, but without agendas, please, and you look at this. Again, I don't think Mesut Ozil, for example, have any issues donating and deferring wages. But he's 31. He's on a good contract. We've got to remember now, he's entitled to earn them funds. And he's, 30, 31. There might not be another opportunity to gain that. Within, obviously, respecting the global epidemic, which is happening, people. It's not really his fault. He should still be paid his money. He's legally got it, people. So if there's guarantees the money are gonna come, it's simple as, isn't it? Like, I'm sure the players are like, they're not like us. Like, if we don't get paid for a year, people, we don't have roofs over our head. They might, because some what's not spoken about is how footballers swindle money. But you'd imagine they'd be able to hold it up, because a lot of them earn endorsements and a lot of other things, people, really and truly. And you've also got to remember, again, like kind of what was said at the beginning, what happens if man leave? What happens if, things change? There's got to be clear guidelines, and it's a difficult one, the whole topic of transfers and contracts for not only Arsenal but all clubs, for FIFA, for the players, and definitely agents. It's something that's going to, not just the transfer market, this is going to flip a lot of things on its head, people, because this is why you need a lot of legality, and this is why I'm preaching for players. Like, if they've been briefed and everything's been done, cool, but really don't make any snap decisions, and for everybody, really, because clubs are bookie. But a 12.5% reduction obviously would probably look good on the books for Arsenal. It went on to say it would be reimbursed in full if Arsenal qualify for the Champions League for the 2020-21 season, or halved if they play in the Europa League. Missing out on Europe altogether would classify this reduction as a definitive full pay cut. And again, really, if the club is underperforming, then players really, in life, if you're a CEO and you're not bringing in new business and you're not pushing the company to new boundaries, then you really shouldn't get your salary that you're getting. If you're doing that, then cool. I guess from one hand, if you're not playing, we're Arsenal, and when you get past that Arsenal and the history, we're not a Champions League team right now. We're not. So should you be paid Champions League wages, in which I would define a lot of them are on Champions League wages. In fact, they probably, because of us being in England and things, they earn more money than some Champions League clubs, obviously. So I get that. But at the end of the day, it's legal. You've signed these contracts. Arsenal have to honour it. And for me, I just can't get past the fact that I can't understand how a week's wages, don't get me wrong, I can see how collectively the whole squad donating a week, how much money that is. But I can't be bugging out, people. And again, I'm not placing it at the owner's foot or anyone else, but players taking a week's wage cut, fair enough, you're entitled to say that or whatever. But why can't it be a thing where the owner deals with that? I'm sure FFP and all these things would not be an issue because of the circumstances. If the owner, who not only is he making money off Arsenal, not technically spent any real money on this, and sees his stocks double and double, and we all know how much Arsenal's going to go for if he ever sells it. Someone that's not only got that but married into the Walmart dynasty and many other ventures. Kroenke's a clearly good businessman. This is light work for him. And again, I know as being who I am, I'm not in a position to do things like that. Guys like me always scream for the rich or whatever to make a change and do things. But I mean, come on. Why can't he ensure that the wages get paid and then the players take this pay cut in good faith and donate it to a relevant charity or set something up or do something? It just feels like scapegoating. I'm not gonna lie, people. And collectively, the players, not just at Arsenal, but the whole Premier League, they need to form like a union and come together. I know you've got the PFA, but has the PFA ever dealt with something like this before? Maybe they need external legal advice, not just as Arsenal players, but Premier League players. Fuck it, football as a whole, people. Apologies for my French. And like you can see, a pay cut, that's a bit crafty from Arsenal. It makes sense. Missing out on the Champions League is already a factor, as most players have clauses in their contracts, worth up to 20% based on appearing in Europe's most lucrative competition. The correspondence from Arsenal also referred to the possibility of this season not finishing and money from broadcasting not coming as very grave, stating that if that happens, new talks would be required. So again, Arsenal probably trying to cover all of these bases. It's not Arteta, but if you remember, Arteta in relation to the transfer thing said we're preparing for 2 to 3 different scenarios. You got to imagine the club are kind of doing it with the contracts, and very vaguely the players' contracts we're on and what happens with this kind of affects our business forward. So I'm not saying the club's being sinister or anything. I'm just saying they've got to quantify every possible avenue, whatever direction takes, what happens between that, and how to exploit such people, and even things we won't comprehend. So this is why I said at the start, it's not as simple as saying this or that or this or that. You need to try and comprehend everything, people. And again, that tells you something. If we don't get this money in the TV broadcasting, Arsenal's profits allegedly have been falling, depending on how you look at it. We're in issues. Arsenal obviously received 185.6 million in broadcast revenue in 2019, according to the Football Money League published this January. Matchday income at Arsenal is a big problem. Matchday income is a big part of the problem for Arsenal, it says, which accounts for 25% of our revenue as of 2019, or better yet, 96.2 million. This is a significantly higher proportion than any other top 6 club, with Tottenham Hotspur at 18%, the nearest comparison. So again, a lot of teams rely on Matchday, but can this be said that we need to do more work in terms of sponsorships and things like that? Because we're in trouble. Out of everyone in the top 6, Arsenal and Spurs are in trouble if we don't get this Matchday piece. So you can see the knock-on effect, and already the picture happens. And the club need to look after the club's health, of course. I'm not preaching that. I'm just saying, depending on how you look at it, it's a dodgy one, people. Apparently, Deluded, I can never say their name, but the financial organisation, apparently a staff member on behalf of them, Tim Bridges, said, he was not optimistic when speaking earlier this year about Arsenal's finances or financial position. He described it as, there's nothing that stands out, nothing drives things forward, and income has flatlined for 5 years. So you make of that what you will, people. Which is Vuki. Apparently, if we qualify for next season's Champions League, then of course, there's things that can be done. But personally, it's very easy for me to say it to do with someone's money, but Stan Kroenke, I'm sure there'd be no implications if he came out and said, I'm going to do this, because it shouldn't really be that. And again, it's time to look after your own. The players, the staff, even Edu and these guys there, the non-playing staff, they are what's making you money. They're working so you can enjoy it. I'm not saying Kroenke doesn't do anything behind the scenes or his family, but they're keeping this football club alive with something where you've doubled your stock individual shares, something you're going to make a lot of money if you ever decide to sell Arsenal. I personally don't think he'll ever will, people. I think this is going to be a consistent sort of investment that gets, passed down through generations, because it's a lovely earner. It's time you support them the same way the players. I feel we've been underperforming, clearly, people, at that level. We've been underperforming in terms of not having Champions League, but this is the heartbeat of the club. These are the people that are working so that you can enjoy. You're probably on a beach somewhere and don't even know what the Emirates looks like again. It's time that you show some faith to them and help them. It shouldn't be on the players. Like, if I just look at Stan Kroenke's net worth, I'm probably going to mash up my eyeballs looking at this, people. 10 billion. 10 billion. Are you telling me you can't look after a week? The players should be doing that. Come on. I'm not saying the players shouldn't donate money or, wages deferred and things, but are you telling me you can't look after your own. Because if you look at it, any business owner should look at their company as one big family. You should be looking after your family. Forget the players. It's the staff, the people that sit there on a match day when something's gone wrong with the tickets and you're there in the box office, the stewards, the people at admin and finance level and many different departments. They're the heartbeat of the club. Every role interlinks to keeping this club alive. And you telling me something that you barely invested any real money in and seen a lot of returns. Like, I'm not going to lie, looking at Arsenal people from a non-Arsenal fan perspective, what Kroenke has done here is fantastic business. And like, he's making cake, but he's worth 10 billion. His family, I don't know how much they're worth when it's all linked up, because his wife is caked as well. Are you telling me you can't look after a week's wages, or you can't handle that for the staff? You can't handle that. Says it all about people. And again, I'm not saying it's just one person, and I'm not saying the players don't deserve to donate, but I can't see the logic in it, people. I really can't. I can see the logic in it better yet, but I mean, it is what it is, man. And I do think clubs are going to try and exploit the fact that players are kind of being demonised, especially with certain MPs coming out and not checking their hedge fund owner friends. But it is what it is, man. And, you know, that's just my opinion from a young 24-year-old, 25 tomorrow lad just sat in his bedroom speaking about such. But my opinion's done. Ultimately, it means nothing. But I'd love to hear what you lot got to say. Please comment, subscribe and do the rest. People, God bless, DG.